Hello, internet machine.
Hello,
Oh my
Internet Machine and
God, we're
Rachel.
matching!
Oh my God, not even planned. Literally not even planned,
Literally
but the
not
best
even
idea.
planned. And I'm not even Michael. It's a crazy day. It's anything can happen Tuesday.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows?
There
I
might
had
not
to
be a
look at a
show. There is.
calendar to
There is.
see what day it was. And then because I was like, I don't know what day of the week it is.
No.
All the days are the same.
Agreed.
It's,
Agreed. The only reason I know what day it is I wake up and I'm like, oh, the show's not done. I have to get the show done, and it's Tuesday. So, yeah.
is
I
that
wake up in a panic, a sweat, and a scream going into the.
great?
That's not true.
So
But yeah.
that's where you're at right now?
Yeah. I just came down.
Cool. So, this week in news.
Yeah, this week in news, good. There was some good news, some bad news. Um, as always, we mined the internet for some weird fucking news as well.
Awesome.
Man, this this show just took a turn. Like not this week, but like obviously weeks ago, took a turn for getting way harder. In a good way. As I forget if I've said this before, but if you would have asked me like, "Hey Miles, would you consider yourself very political?" If you would have asked me 2 months ago, maybe a month ago, I would have said like, "Nah, not really." And now, like through the show, I'm almost forced to like decide what I think and then take a stance and keep informed, which is cool.
Yeah.
I've never done that before, so it's an interesting kind of side effect of wanting to make a fun news show. Is like, oh, you gotta have an idea what you're talking about.
Awesome. No, that's good. That's a good byproduct.
Yeah.
Sweet.
I think it's been fun.
Yeah.
Like we talked about before, I want to preface this show is a little bit longer.
Okay.
It's a little bit longer.
We've
Only
been
like
warned.
8 minutes longer. It's entertaining, but it's a little bit longer.
Okay. Sweet. Anything else you want to say before we dive in?
I will shut up.
Sweet. All right, I'm excited. I haven't seen it yet because I guess nobody's seen it yet.
2 hours ago.
Awesome. Sweet. Let's go for it.
All right, let's do it. Oh, I think you got to let me share screens.
Oh. Tech support.
Tech support. Got it.
Yeah. It's like I did it myself.
Good evening, and welcome to news. Welcome to news. Welcome to Good evening, and welcome to News. Welcome to News. Welcome to Get ready. Good evening, and welcome to News Heart,
presented by Outer Loop TV. I'm Miles Potter. It's 8 p.m. Do you like a dude cha-cha? On today's date, in 1858, senatorial candidate fails to placate those who discriminate. Abraham Lincoln spoke in Springfield regarding the issue of slavery and how it was dividing the nation. He believed that it should end, and it was up to the federal government, not the states, to stop it. Well, to be honest, Abe, things are better, but we still got a long way to go. And now, some news. This week, Poland accidentally invaded the Czech Republic. You heard that right. Polish troops tried to stop Czech citizens from entering a church in their own country. All is forgiven as a mistake. Could you imagine? How was your day, honey? Oh, just had my sausages for lunch, grabbed a beer after work with the fellas, invaded the Czech Republic, and, just chilled, really. This week, a pair hired for a man's sexual fantasy turned up in the bedroom of the wrong address with machetes. The homeowner is quoted saying, "I don't know what was going on. I just woke up and I couldn't stop coming." In India this week, officials claim to have captured a spy pigeon from Pakistan. It was said that the pigeon had a ring attached to one of its legs. Some say it's a coded message. Others say it's a tag to claim ownership. And I'm saying, damn it, Ursula, will you just marry me? This past week, a strip club in Portland, Oregon is offering drive-through service during the coronavirus lockdown. I myself enjoyed going because the employees are often kind and the drive-through buffet is lovely. A certain state in the union has seen its biggest number of coronavirus cases in one day since the outbreak began. And you guessed it, fucking Florida. It's almost like they're worried we're not talking about it. This week in Northwest France, an annual twin festival has reached its 25th year. The main attractions of the festival are tricking the teacher competitions, or go on a date with your sister's boyfriend sock hop, and the literally any other sitcom hijinks bags game. This week in Germany, a German chocolate factory spilled close to a metric ton of chocolate onto
God.
street. An eyewitness was quoted saying, "Listen, the streets taste good and the town smells delicious. I'm on drugs." This week, Tucker Carlson is losing sponsors left and right after making racist comments on his new show, Tux and the Gang. I don't really know. I haven't seen it. But this fucking knob, who looks like everything I hated about college, has alienated his sponsors by saying, and I quote, "This may be a lot of things, this moment we're living through, but it is definitely not about Black lives." Really? Tuck? This isn't about Black lives? Because I could have sworn that it was. A Florida man is facing felony charges after police said he let a 12-year-old girl drive his SUV and told her to speed because he wanted to be a cool father, even though he's not her dad. I didn't know an entire state could be a comedy writer. This week, NASCAR banned the use of the Confederate flag at all of its racing events. Here to talk about it is a voluntary representative from NASCAR. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. No, yeah, we over here don't really give two shits about whether or not they can fly that flag or not. Really, it's we don't really like losers in NASCAR. I mean, they made a whole movie based off the premise of if you ain't first, you're last. And them some bitches weren't first. They fucking lost that shit. And then they waved the white flag, which gets waved at things often too. Races, what I meant to say. But anyway, no, we're just here to drink beer, eat ribs, and raise hell and praise Dale. Hallelujah.
Is that Jeff Foxworthy behind you?
Huh?
The Academy Awards have delayed the 2021 Oscars to a later date due to the coronavirus. But wait, how will we find out which white person wins the gold lady? San Antonio is doing some real Florida-level shit this week. 3 people stole a shark from an aquarium by putting it in a baby carriage. The unmarried shark named Miss Helen told reporters, "Bitch, I was fine the entire time," while making a gun shape with her fin. And now, a commercial.
Is that mine? That's for me. We can share that. Welcome back to your old pal Chuck Taylor, back selling you some shit. You can wear my pants if you can't find your own. On this week's show, we're selling you this iron. I mean, this is one of them new irons, pretty good. Oh, it's squirting water at me. Now be careful of squirting on you. Why the fuck does this iron have water in it? So you can steam it at the same time you're ironing it. I get it. Literally, they give me things and I sell them to you. I don't know how to tell you. I don't know how to tell you what we do. This one's blue and white. We also got a red, black, green, and yellow. Pick your iron color. We're selling it to you. Any way you hold this iron, it will drip on you. It's got two buttons here, one for steam, one for squirt. That's my setting, too, I suppose. This is my grandson. He used to play trombone in the school band until he gave it up so he could go cross-country skiing for the rest of his life. He's currently in Wyoming on his way east. Well, this has been Chuck Taylor back selling you some shit. Irons. When you don't give a fuck, but somebody does out there. Fuck off.
With thousands of people around the nation protesting and the pandemic still going on, many people are protesting from home the best they can. Here with tips on how to do just that is our correspondent, Nolan Skates.
Hello, thank you so much. My name is Nolan Skates. I'm news hard work from home bad boy. I'm here today to share some tips with you on how to protest from home. For those of you who don't want or who are worried about coronavirus, about the pandemic, legally cannot be around this group of people because you're a healthcare worker or anything of that nature, you can still do stuff from home. So I'm here as the at-home bad boy of the News Hard office that I'm here to share you some tips on how to work from home, or not work from home, protest from home. I hold these seminars all day. Anyway, number one thing you can do, just pretty easy. If you have the means, go ahead and support bail funds. Also, be sure before you support the bail fund to go on the bail fund's website to make sure they're still accepting money, because a lot of bail funds are no longer doing that because so many people have gone to donate, and that's the first thing, because so many people are unjustly arrested at these protests because they're protesting peacefully, but then, some people deem that it's an illegal area or something, and then they get arrested, and then, I've heard some reports of people not being found for 2 days. It's dangerous. Bail funds are needed, and also there are pro bono lawyers that will help people that were arrested for protesting. So be sure to look that up in all your local areas. The number two thing you can do is donate to organizations on the ground. Number one, Black Lives Matter, Okra Project, the Loveland Foundation. These are all really helpful things for what's going on right now, and they could use the money and help just as much, if not more, than any other. Number three, you can create art. Actually, literally create art. Put it on a sign. Make cardboard cutouts for protests. Do whatever you can. Show people that you are supporting them. It's super important, especially if you're not meant for the front lines. That's okay. The number one step is accepting that. For me, I don't like large crowds just because I get lockup anxiety, and in a march, I'm no help to nobody. I cannot express this enough. The one thing that seems to be definitely making headway is you contacting public officials. These are the people in your county, town, neighborhood, governor, anybody that is in charge of changing laws and making actual change. So I urge you to keep doing that if you already have, and if you haven't, it's pretty easy. Most of the time it's just an email. You can go online and just blast emails all over online. Just please remember that if you go and protest, that this is not a sprint, it is a marathon. So if you go to a protest, sit out for 2 weeks, socially distance, make sure that we're not spreading coronavirus and letting people take that away from the message, because that is not what needs to happen. I appreciate you all, and you know what, huge shout out to my parents, because they said that I'd never make a living from working from home, and look at me now. Or if I don't get outside, look at me now, drinking coconut LaCroix at grandma's house. What? No, it's not the last one. Well, I told you to get a soda stream just because I drink so many. Oh, yeah, the gall on you. Anyway, thank you so much. Back to you, Miles. I love you.
Now for our segment Down the Line, where I go from world news down to personal news. Europe's borders have opened for tourism from other European countries. Spain allowed some German tourists to vacation at one of Spain's islands. That's like inviting a friend over and saying, yeah, you can come over, but you have to stay in the closet. It's a really, really nice closet. The U.S. has revoked emergency use of drugs used to fight the coronavirus because they don't work. Not only do they not work, they also could cause serious side effects. Hydroxychloroquine. Yeah, That one. It's for malaria. Ugh. Illinois has made $275 million available for families affected by the coronavirus pandemic through a website that launched yesterday, helpillinoisfamilies.com. In order to be eligible, you need to prove that you've had a fixed income for the past 30 days. So if you lost your job before that, I guess just keep not having a job. Chicago unveiled its plan to reopen Chicago's lakefront and bars. We have a picture response from the citizens of Chicago. My entire family went to Grand Lake, Michigan, Flintish, and attended a going-away party for my cousin. There was no joke, like 60 people there, and no one gave a fuck about social distancing. The worst part was the party was actually really fun. I am finally feeling like my hair is at a place where I can let it be free in the world. I need a haircut for it to look more normal, but it's too short to like get a cut. I think I'm just gonna go another month looking like I got a bad buzz cut. As I mentioned last week, President Obama in 2015 created a task force charged with the responsibility of developing a better plan for 21st century policing, something that was barely implemented, and you can see where we are now. The report that the task force came out with rests on 6 pillars, each pillar filled with recommendations and action items to improve the way we are policed in the 21st century. Last week, we looked at Pillar 1, building trust and legitimacy, and this week we're looking at Pillar 2, policy and oversight in what does that mean? Okay, Pillar 2. Here's what we're getting into so you can be ready and organize it in your minds. 15 recommendations. I know that seems like a lot, especially when last week was 9, but a bunch of the recommendations don't have any action items. We'll take a break after 5 and 10, and Chuck Taylor's coming next. Like before, this pillar has a sort of thesis statement. Citizens have a constitutional right to freedom of expression, including the right to peacefully demonstrate. Pretty applicable to now. Recommendation 2.1. Law enforcement agencies should collaborate with community members to develop policies and strategies in communities and neighborhoods disproportionately affected by crime for deploying resources that aim to reduce crime by improving relationships, greater community engagement, and cooperation. If there's a bunch of crime happening somewhere, allocate some resources there to actually fix the problem. First action item. The federal government should incentivize this collaboration through a variety of programs that focus on public health, education, mental health, and other programs not traditionally part of the criminal justice system. The federal government will give you treats if you do this. Woo! Treats! Recommendation 2.2. Law enforcement agencies should have comprehensive policies on the use of force that include training, investigations, prosecutions, data collection, and information sharing. These policies must be clear, concise, and openly available for public inspection. I'll just repeat the important part. Comprehensive policies on the use of force that include training, investigations, prosecutions, data collection, and information sharing. Remember, this went straight to President Obama, so anything that they say the federal government should do, he sees. He saw. First action item. Law enforcement agency policies for training on use of force should emphasize de-escalation and alternatives to arrest or summons in situations where appropriate. Those trainings you have on force should be focused on not having to use force in the first place. Right? Right? Second action item. These policies should also mandate external and independent criminal investigations in cases of police use of force resulting in death, officer-involved shootings resulting in injury or death, or in-custody deaths. When force is used, someone, not you guys, needs to investigate what happened. Third action item. The task force encourages policies that mandate the use of external and independent prosecutors in cases of police use of force resulting in death, officer-involved shootings resulting in injury or death, or in-custody deaths. In the case of something fucked up happening, someone, not y'all's lawyers, need to be the prosecutor. No getting each other off just because you're buddies. Fourth action item. Policies on the use of force should also require agencies to collect, maintain, and report data to the federal government on all officer-involved shootings, whether fatal or non-fatal, as well as any in-custody death. Everything that happens that results in an officer shooting their weapon, report to the federal government. 5th action item. Lots of action items around the use of force. Nudge, nudge. Policies on use of force should clearly state what types of information will be released, when, and in what situation to maintain transparency. When you shoot your weapon, you'll know what info is going to be released. We'll all know. No one is getting lied to or being withheld information. America. Crazy, right? 6th action item. Law enforcement agencies should establish a serious incident review board comprising sworn staff and community members to review cases involving officer-involved shootings and other serious accidents that have the potential to damage community trust or confidence in the agency. The purpose of this board should be to identify any administrative, supervisory, training, tactical, or policy issues that need to be addressed. Make a special review board to review any fucked up things that happen so that they can be handled at a community level. Recommendation 2.3. Law enforcement agencies are encouraged to implement non-punitive peer review of critical incidents separate from criminal and administrative investigations. While things are sent to the federal government and dealt with at the community level, you should also have an internal peer review of stuff. Law enforcement agencies are encouraged to adopt identification procedures that implement scientifically supported practices that eliminate or minimize presenter bias or influence. I hope you can at least recognize why everyone in America and other places are pissed right now. It's because you clearly have a bias in who you police. For your sake, we're going to take a crazy jump into the future and create a scientifically backed identification system. DNA-based, who knows? Science fiction shit. Recommendation 2.5. All federal, state, local, and tribal law enforcement agencies should report and make available to the public census data regarding the composition of their departments, including race, gender, age, and other relevant demographic data. You're pretty aware of our demographics. What are yours? First action item. The Bureau of Justice Statistics should add additional demographic questions to the Law Enforcement Management and Administrative Statistics survey in order to meet the intent of this recommendation. Apparently, I didn't know this, you all have a survey of your departments. Now we'll be asking questions about your demographics. We'll know each other better. Okay, break time. Everyone okay? Not too bad, right? Here's a picture of a baby horse. Take a deep breath. Here we go. Recommendation 2.6. Law enforcement agencies should be encouraged to collect, maintain, and analyze demographic data on all detentions, stops, frisks, search, summons, and arrests. This data should be disaggregated by school and non-school contexts. We're seeing demographics all over the internet now when it comes to police violence. This shouldn't be the only time we, or you, should see these. Keep a running record of who you're doing what to. First action item. The federal government should further incentivize universities and other organizations to partner with police departments to collect data and develop knowledge about analysis and benchmarks, as well as to develop tools and templates that help departments manage data collection and analysis. In case you don't want to do this, and we're kind of guessing that you don't, you can partner with colleges and other organizations, and they'll do the work for you. Win-win. Recommendation 2.7. Law enforcement agencies should create policies and procedures for policing mass demonstrations that employ a continuum of managed tactical resources that are designed to minimize the appearance of military operation and avoid using provocative tactics and equipment that undermine civilian trust. They said this in 2015. In the event that protests or something happen, nudge, nudge, create policies that and procedures that minimize military use or provoke protesters. 2015. First action item. Law enforcement agency policies should address procedures for implementing a layered response to mass demonstrations that prioritize de-escalation and a guardian mindset. when there are large demonstrations happening, like let's say across the country in every major city and then some over the equity of Black lives, for example, you would know how to respond correctly. Second action item. The federal government should create a mechanism for investigating complaints and issuing sanctions regarding the inappropriate use of equipment and tactics during mass demonstrations. When fucked up things happen, y'all gonna be checked out. Recommendation 2.8. Some form of civilian oversight of law enforcement is important in order to strengthen trust with the community. Every community should define the appropriate form and structure of civilian oversight to meet the needs of that community. Civilian, meaning not police. Oversight, meaning the act of overseeing something. Some form of civilian oversight as to what you do. Action item 1. The U.S. Department of Justice, through its research arm, the National Institute of Justice, should expand its research agenda to include civilian oversight. Everyone's getting involved. Community involvement. You see a theme? Community involvement. Action item 2, the U.S. Department of Justice's Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, COPS, should provide technical assistance and collect best practices from existing civilian oversight efforts and be prepared to help cities create this structure, potentially with some matching grants and funding. Community-Oriented Policing Services, COPS. They're gonna make the perfect plan for you. Recommendation 2.9. Law enforcement agencies and municipalities should refrain from practices requiring officers to issue a predetermined number of tickets, citations, arrests, or summonses, or to initiate investigative contracts with citizens for reasons not directly related to improving public safety, such as generating revenue. Get rid of your quotas. That's bullshit. Just because you have to get X amount of arrests doesn't mean there are X amount of crimes happening. That is a really shitty assumption. Recommendation 2.10. Law enforcement officers should be required to seek consent before a search and explain that a person has a right to refuse consent when there is no warrant or probable cause. Furthermore, officers should ideally obtain a written acknowledgement that they have sought consent to a search in these circumstances. When did a police officer needing a warrant to go in a place stop being a thing? Get a warrant before a search. If that stopped being a thing, make it a thing again. Also, important to note in that you don't have to give consent to them searching your place without a warrant. So don't. Break number 2. We're almost there. Chucks are coming. Here's a picture of a salamander having the best day ever. Okay, here we go. Recommendation 2.11. Law enforcement agencies should adopt policies requiring officers to identify themselves by their full name, rank, and command as applicable, and provide that information in writing to individuals they have stopped. In addition, policies should require officers to state the reason for the stop and the reason for the search if one is conducted. Pretty self-explanatory. Also kind of the same idea as a lot of the previous recommendations. Tell us your shit. First action item. One example of how to do this is for law enforcement officers to carry business cards containing their name, rank, command, and contact information that would enable individuals to offer suggestions or commendations or to file complaints with the appropriate individual, office, or board. These cards would be easily distributed in all encounters. You get business cards. That's so fun, right? Recommendation 2.12. Law enforcement agencies should establish search and seizure procedures related to LGBTQ and transgender populations and adopt as policy the recommendation from the President's Advisory Council on HIV/AIDS to cease using the possession of condoms as the sole evidence of vice. If condoms mean you're guilty of vice, wow. I currently have none, but wow. Recommendation 2.13. Law enforcement agencies should adopt and enforce policies prohibiting profiling and discrimination based on race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, age, gender identity/expression, sexual orientation, immigration status, disability, housing status, occupation, or language fluency. You guys basically invented racial profiling. Now invent a way to not. First action item. The Bureau of Justice Statistics should add questions concerning sexual harassment of and misconduct toward community members, and in particular LGBTQ and gender nonconforming people, by law enforcement officers to the Police Public Contact Survey. You're going to be checked up on regarding harassment now too. Second action item. The Centers for Disease Control should add questions concerning sexual harassment of and misconduct toward community members, and in particular LGBTQ and non-gender conforming people, by law enforcement officers to the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey. The CDC will ask about harassment too. See, this 21st century policing thing isn't just about Black Americans and racial profiling, it's also about equity everywhere. Third action item. The U.S. Department of Justice should promote and disseminate guidance to federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies on documenting, preventing, and addressing sexual harassment and misconduct by local law enforcement agents, consistent with a recommendation of the International Association of Chiefs of Police. The U.S. DepDevJust will advise you on how to document, prevent, and address harassment. You guys have a whole lot of learning to do. And seeing as how it only takes you, 21 weeks of whatever training, and then you get a gun and you're a police officer, I think it's about time you did more learning. Recommendation 2.14. The U.S. Department of Justice, through the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services and Office of Justice Programs, should provide technical assistance and incentive funding to jurisdictions with small police agencies that take steps towards shared services, regional training, and consolidation. Like earlier, if you do good things, you get treats. Treats. Recommendation 2.15. The U.S. Department of Justice, through the Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, should partner with the International Association of Directors of Law Enforcement Standards and Training to expand its National Decertification Index to serve as the National Register of Decertified Officers, with the goal of covering all agencies within the United States and its territories. COPS partners with IDLEST to expand a register of decertified police officers. The list of decertified police officers isn't complete? Huh. Well, that is what that means. Pillar 2, policy and oversight. 21st century policing. Shit we created in 2015 and never implemented. And now, a commercial.
It was him. I can't find my shoes. A tip of the cap. Welcome back to Chuck Taylor, back selling you some shit. These are real. These ain't. On today's show, we're selling you this fucking life-size teddy bear. I know it ain't Valentine's Day, but are you lonely as shit? And get a life-size teddy bear. I sleep with this goddamn thing. You can sleep with it. You can sit with it. When you're missing your grandson, it can sit on your lap. I scissor it. They put a heart on it, so you know he's a good dude. Yeah, we're selling this exact one, used. Without the heart, they're just some fucking weird ass bear staring at me, but they got a heart there. No, so I know this bear knows how to show me empathy. I've been married 75 years. 75 beautiful years. She lives on the other side of the state, but we are in love. I only use this bear for physical companionship. No offense. This is my grandson. He used to sell T-shirts on the beach for $49.99. He surprisingly had a lot of sales and made about $1 million over the course of 10 years. It's just too bad he died recently after, so he never saw any of his wealth. He passed it off to yours truly, though, which I have used to fund this show. Well, that's been Selling Your Shit with Chuck Taylor. Life-size love bears for when your wife lives on the other side of the state. Fuck off.
On Friday, the Trump administration finalized a rule that would overturn legislation created in the Obama era protecting transgender people from sex discrimination in healthcare. Here with more information is our correspondent, Laurel James.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Of course. Before we get into it, give us a little bit more information on the background and kind of how we got to where we are.
Sure. So on the same day that the GOP stated that their official platform still wishes to repeal same-sex marriage, they also released a press release that says President Trump has taken unprecedented steps to protect the LGBTQ community.
Really?
And some of the GOP highlights are the promise that the president will do everything in his power to protect LGBTQ citizens, which is from a speech he made when he received the Republican nomination in 2016, which at the time was stronger language than any Republicans had used in favor of queer people in the past.
So great.
Sure. It sounds great on the face of it, but I think something super fun about our president is that he never quite does a good job. The reality is that Trump has always opposed the Equality Act, which would protect queer people from housing and employment discrimination. And he was also barely in office a few months before he banned trans people from serving in the military. And this GOP document also claims that the Trump administration wants more robust funding for HIV and AIDS research. But he has a funny way of showing it because his proposed budget cut $1.35 billion from PEPFAR, which is an HIV funding source. And then he cut $63 million from the Housing Opportunities for People with AIDS program and $40 million from the CDC's HIV research program. So if he's a huge friend to the queer community, he has an odd way of showing it.
Yeah. Okay, so I mean that sounds a lot like Trump. Like everything's great on the surface, but below, not as much. So with that in mind, what is happening now, and what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so during Obama's administration, in Obamacare, there's this section 1557, which prevents healthcare discrimination from all patients. So this section has, it basically states that the law prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, age, or disability. But as plenty of people pointed out at the time, that sentence doesn't actually protect trans people from gender discrimination, because at the time the term sex did not include gender identity. So Obama made a ruling that the word sex would also cover gender identity when we're talking about this law. However, that rule was blocked by a Texas federal court. So Trump is trying to repeal that rule that Obama set in place.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So I guess with another thing that's happening in all of the shitstorm that is happening right now, how does that affect with coronavirus going on and all of this? What does that mean connected?
Well, it's the worst, Miles, for asking. Essentially, during a worldwide pandemic, our president has allowed healthcare providers to turn away trans people, which is sort of like a cute package for genocide. But the research indicates that queer people are more likely to have risk factors that would make them vulnerable to coronavirus complications, such as a compromised immune system or respiratory illness. And the major risk factors for that are poverty, so being exposed to less safe environments, and of course HIV.
So people who are already more at risk for health complications on top of a pandemic are now able to get turned away at healthcare.
Yes, that's correct. So, for example, if I thought I had coronavirus and I went to the hospital, legally, healthcare providers could say, "Oh, we're all good. You can go home."
Damn.
Would be a bummer.
Super candid question then. Are we fucked?
Sort of. Not entirely. So, no matter what the Trump administration says, the healthcare rights law is the law of the land, and it gives all people access to healthcare in the United States, regardless of any other factors. I would say if you were turned away by a healthcare professional and you lived to tell the tale, if you took it to court, you would have some great success in overturning the law, potentially, because most courts in the United States have upheld Obama's Section 1557.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. In my anti-racism research, I keep coming across the same one name, Ibram X. Kendi. He's the author of How to Be Anti-Racist and Stamped from the Beginning. He was recently assigned to be a professor of history at Boston University. He starts July 1st, 2020. And at the same time is the founding director of the Boston University Center for Anti-Racist Research. This is an extremely brief interview and very much on the lighter side, but I think it's important that we highlight him. I also keep in mind the book he recommends for required reading.
Hi, my name is Ibram X. Kendi, and this is The Big Question. What I consider to be my favorite movie quote of all time is from the movie After Earth, starring Will Smith. And in the movie, he says to his son, "Fear is not real. It is a product of our imagination. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is real, but fear is a choice." So I mean, as a diehard New York Knicks fan, of course, when the New York Knicks won the NBA championship in 1973, which was quite a long time ago, but for me, it was the greatest sports victory ever. I would change where the major classical pre-colonial African empires existed in the 1300s and 1400s, and so they tended to be inland, which allowed for what would become European slave traders to be able to sort of land on the coast and start making inroads. And if those empires were essentially on the coast and would have had the same military and political and economic power as these European slave traders, then what we now know as the transatlantic slave trade and thereby colonialism and thereby slavery may have never happened. So I think I would probably make the autobiography of Malcolm X the book that's a required reading. And I think not only in terms of its sort of story about and challenge of racism, but also I think it's a deeply human story, and it's a story of transformation. It's a story of somebody who is constantly critiquing himself and changing into a better self. And I think for all humans, there's no better stories than the stories in which we're able to essentially become a better form of ourselves. I would probably put shackles. And the reason being is because from shackles being used during the enslavement era to it being used during the current era of mass incarceration, I think it's indicative of the type of society that the modern world has wrought, a society of certain types of freedoms and other types of slavery. And I think, obviously, I think I want those forms of unfreedom and enslavement to be remembered so it's not repeated in future generations.
Before we go, and as always, I want to thank Michael, Rachel, and the Outer Loop TV for continuing to support the show, and Laurel and Nolan for being a part of the show. Also, NewsHard will be taking a mid-season break next week, so there will be no episode June 23rd, and we'll be back more rested and more eager than ever on June 30th. If you know me at all or have ever seen me in the world before, you probably know that I can't sit still, so wish me luck in trying this new thing called relaxing. Thank you for watching. This has been NewsHard.
Woohoo! You did it!
We're on the other side.
We are on the other side. Great show.
Thank you. Sorry, 1 second.
I will
Sorry.
say that
Never ready.
next time we're gonna screen share.
Yeah. I thought of that like as soon as all this shit was going on. I was like, just send it to them Monday night. So yes.
That's funny. I think you'll appreciate this. I got a text from my mom saying, "Are you eating snacks?" Not me.
I got a text from Nolan who's like, someone needs to mute. I'm like, it's me.
But that's the problem. You can't mute.
What? Sorry.
But it's a problem. You can't mute when you're screen sharing.
I know. I should have just left the room. Well, now I have chips. Everyone knows I have chips.
Everyone knows you have chips.
Yeah.
That sound is unmistakable.
They're great. So.
No, but really, really great episode. I enjoyed
Thank
it.
you.
I think I can speak for maybe everyone when I say more Laurel.
Yeah. Love Laurel.
Yeah.
Laurel and I are on an improv team together in Chicago.
Awesome.
And they're amazing.
Yeah, for sure. What did you find? What was most challenging for you with this week's episode?
Practically leaving for a couple days, that's a bad idea. I think so. The practicality of it, and also like I want the show to be engaging the entire time, and it's hard like I usually do improv where it's like all entertainment and all like I can just lean so hard into being the weirdest adorable German man or Chuck Taylor. I can be those people. But when you're dealing with like there's not only that and being informative, there's that and being informative and supportive, which is kind of my mantra that I always tell to Nolan or tell to Laurel or whoever I have on the shows. Like I want it to be those three things equally and as much as possible all the time. Mm-hmm. And I think right now the show can bounce between each of those three, and I want to find a better balance of all of them being present. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. I hear that. But I felt like, I was engaged, and I have a lot of takeaways. Particularly, I have some from Nolan, some from Laurel, and then I also had a moment where I forgot what reality is. And when you were like introducing Ibram X. Kendi, for a second, my mind was like, oh, is he going to be on?
Oh man, that would be a dream come true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll get there next, in the future.
What's that?
We'll get there.
Oh yeah. Oh, that would be so cool. I thought about that while I was editing. I'm like, if I were to interview Ibram X. Kendi, one, that would be insane. Two, he's only like 34, 35. I'd be like, dude, you're my age and you're killing it. You're like, wow. He just got that job at Boston University. He starts in like less than a month. And he started that research center in DC where they're like not only going to research like anti-racism and racism, but where they can like make policy changes. So I'm like, not only does this guy write 2 books that I found, I'm like, oh, I need to read these. Who's the author? The same guy. Mm-hmm. But he's like taking huge steps like that. I'm like, this is the person to listen to and to follow. And I think I mentioned it in the episode, but he recommended Malcolm X's autobiography, which another friend of mine recommended like a week or so ago. So just more information of like that I have to read.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I wrote it down. I was like, well, that's next time I'm compiling a reading list. Like I know everyone else is because, like you said, all of the same books are sold out on Amazon. Yeah. So there's a lot of education going on.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
good.
Exactly. It is past due.
Yes, far past due. I may have said it in an episode or so before, but like I feel so under like. I don't know enough right now to even talk about it. So that's why it's a lot smarter maybe for me is like, let's have someone who knows what they're talking about talk about it while I'm learning. And I mean, I'll always be learning, but so at some point maybe there's a switch of like, let me tell you what I know, but I'm nowhere close.
Yeah. I feel the same way, but I also think, good on you, and it's a good example that like we have to sort of learn in front of each other a little bit, and if you're two afraid to say anything at all, then we don't progress forward. So while everybody's kind of in process, then we have to sort of like be upfront about where we're at, you know. And not just shy away from the conversation because it's hard to have, which is what we've done forever, right? That I feel like that's one of my biggest takeaways in my own kind of education right now is like times where I thought, well, I'm not doing anything like actively wrong or bad, but I'm just sort of like not participating because that's easier. That's actually part of the problem. So
yeah, definitely. Man, I had a thought and I lost it, but I think that's definitely it. Is like when you're, I remember what I was going to say. When, like, as you're doing your research, if you're not talking about what you do know, then it's not being challenged, or you're not actually like taking it in. You're just maybe regurgitating things you read or things you know. So if you can handle being that vulnerable with like, I'm not fully learned, but here's what I do know and what I think, that's going to be way more valuable to you and the movement as a whole.
Right. And I think there's something important what you just said about, you know, you might say something wrong and you might get corrected and you gotta not be like all butthurt about it. Like you have to take that in and say, okay, like I accept that criticism and, you know, do better next time.
And that's fucking hard.
Yeah.
That's fucking hard.
Yeah. We're not used to that.
No. I was talking to another buddy a week or so ago when like I feel like there's just an emotion. We're in acting school too, so I'm like everything's emotion. But it's whatever you were doing. It's just there's such a lack of like emotional intelligence, maturity, whatever. Like if you're challenged, you get angry, and then that's maybe too much for you. So you like have to attack or run or whatever, and the ability to maybe stay with it and stay with the person is so valuable and so unlearned and not cared about, when it would be like just to do anything. It sounds like it would be such a great skill to have if you're having like, especially like everyone go to acting school. That's what I'm trying to say. I feel like way better at like just like discussions with people. I can say my idea, they can say their idea, they can be totally different, and we can move to the middle or we cannot. And that's an intellectual exercise, not a challenging on me or them.
Yeah, you're right. I think it's just comes from a culture that doesn't teach empathy or empathetic listening, or how to like we are learning be with yourself and be with somebody else, and really open ourselves up to these discussions. So I think everyone should go to acting school, but in place of that, just practicing really listening and being able to take things in without, like you said, just rushing to get defensive, because then all of your energy just goes to being defensive and not actually into the introspection. Yeah,
and then obviously you don't grow, but then maybe you had a piece of gold that they didn't. Right. So you're hurting yourself, them, and the world to, I guess, make it big.
Yeah. Don't hurt the world.
Don't hurt the world. That's the takeaway.
That's the takeaway.
That's the takeaway today. Every episode.
Yeah, I like it.
From now on, that's what Chuck Taylor's going to say at the end of his bits. He's instead of fuck off, he's like, well, don't hurt the world. And then bye.
Yeah. I look forward to it.
Yeah. I don't know about to that.
I like it. Awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing with us, and enjoy your mid-season break. And we look forward to what you come back with, as always. Yeah, thank you. And thank you. I said it in the episode, but thank you to you and Michael. This is so cool to keep doing. And I'm glad you guys are pumped. Yeah, it keeps us going too. So we get something out of it. And plus we learn stuff. Yeah, me too. Yeah, sweet. Awesome. Well, thanks, Miles, and thanks everyone for watching. And we will not see you next Tuesday. We will see you in 2 Tuesdays. June 30th. June 30th. My mom's birthday. Oh, well, we'll have a special thing. A special day. All right. Awesome. All right. Bye, Miles. See you, Rachel.